Hey everyone, welcome to Coach on Command. My name is Aaron Littleton, and I'm the head coach of the Gymnastics Sports Center Storm, two-time AGA champion, and I am also your host for this hour of excitement and wonder. Why is everybody smiling at me?
He's pretty.
This hour of excitement and wonder. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a great show for you tonight, as always. So I've got some of my very deranged and also esteemed colleagues here with me tonight. And so we're going to go down the panel and let them introduce themselves.
I'm Coach Kagan, and I'm a lunatic.
My name is Coach Tracy, and I'm no longer a disembodied head.
Look at that.
Like a full body.
He's
and everything.
returned.
We made
The prodigal
the table.
son.
I've been promoted.
All right, and so tonight we are going to talk about dealing with injuries. You know, we deal with the sport every day. It can obviously be brutal on your body, whether you're talking about parkour, whether you're talking about gymnastics, any sort of acro sport like that. You know, that much is just a reality. And so, you know, you're pounding on your body, whether it be your wrist, whether it be your back, whether it be your knees, your ankles, any of those body parts can really bear the brunt of this sport. Hopefully those injuries fall much more in a minor category than in the major category, but you know there's always a chance for injury regardless of what you're doing in this sport. And so you know, to kind of set up what we're going to talk about, let's talk first about injury prevention. Okay. So what are some ways that you're trying to keep your athletes healthy so that maybe they don't get injured in the first place? You know, drills, prehab, etc., any of that.
Administer vitamin C and bubble wrap. Lots of bubble wrap. It's the only option. No. You teach proper form to start with. You can't expect anybody really to perform well when you haven't given them the tools to be safe.
So I would say that realistically, stretching and warming up your muscles prevents injuries. It's just really, really strong. For one, you really want to warm up appropriately. Warm up for what you're doing. You know, if you're working your legs, I'm not saying don't stretch your arms, but obviously focus more on your legs. And if you're tuning up to throw a serious skill, build up to it at first. Learn to warm up your muscles, get your muscle memory going, and then go for it. Definitely don't. I would argue that you should never just start right out the gate at 100%. You should build up.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And so the thing that I'm going to say is I'm going to echo you guys for a second. Obviously, the number one thing that you can do to not get injured or, you know, not have your children get injured is you can teach them the proper way to do stuff. You know, the good form comes into it. You know, we refer to bad form as chucking it. You know, there's a lot of that goes on, you know, all over the place. You know, just crank your head back and go for it. Parkour. Hope
You land on your
Cheer.
good enough, right?
Cheer is the exact same way.
And so you know, there's a lot of chucking it that goes on in the realm of acro sports, and so we try to teach good form, and part of that is doing the proper drills. It's like, okay, you know, obviously you don't want to chuck your head back in a back handspring. People still do it. What happens if they do, you know, throw their head back?
A lot of
Then
things.
then they're
disorient themselves for one.
right, their legs lag, all of that kind of stuff, and so it's best not to get in any precarious positions to start with. And so we really focus on, hey, make sure that you're stretching through your shoulders. You don't throw your head back. Your head stays neutral. It has nothing to do with your head. And I even tell the girls all the time, I'm like, hey, do you just walk around your house like this?
Yeah.
Mom, make me a sandwich. Is that how you go about your everyday life?
I don't think I've ever said, Mom, make me a sandwich.
Oh,
I would have actually got thrown across the house.
But the point remains, it's like, do you just walk like that in your everyday life? No, you don't. So why are you trying to do it here? You know, but everybody thinks, oh, well, I'm trying to do a back tumbling skill, so I must just crank it back as much as I can. I must just, you know, for my front tuck, I must just, you know, slam my head into the ground, and that must be the way that it goes, but it's not. And so you can avoid a ton of bad things down the line just by, you know, teaching the proper form. And the other thing is, you know, take your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is there any rush?
Right. And so the thing that I've learned is if you don't do it right, you're gonna have to do it again.
Yeah.
And that's going to be even more frustrating because at least when you first start, they don't have anything; they're a blank slate. And so if you work it right the first time, hopefully, I'm not saying it's a catch all, it's the perfect thing to do, but for the most part, you can get rid of a lot of your problems if you take your time the first time, and then you don't have to unteach bad habits down the line.
I was gonna say it's way easier to teach something correctly than to unteach the wrong way to do it and correct it. Because muscle memory is really strong. If you've learned it wrong and that's how you do it, it's hard to unlearn that.
What's even worse is when you know you taught it correctly and you watched them develop the bad habit and then you're having to fix it.
Why did you watch them develop the bad habit?
Because sometimes you don't realize that. So sometimes you end up just being in your work and getting reps in, getting the repetition, trying to get down, and you miss small details, and it ends up causing a landslide that you have to fix later.
Did you have a burn for that? He's wrong.
I'm not wrong. It's a real thing that happens.
He's not wrong. It is a thing that can happen.
Sure.
But I would argue that every time it happens, you should learn from it. Try to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, of course.
I think every time I teach a skill, the next go round, and so obviously it's a different child that you're working with. Every time I teach a skill, I learn something that maybe I didn't know the time before.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you've watched these things, if you're a young coach and you've kind of watched these things happen, and you're just like, well, now all of a sudden we've got this hitch that we didn't have before. Try to learn from that so that you can, the next time you teach it, you can teach it a little bit more correctly, a little bit more efficiently, so you're not having to go back. But yeah, I mean, injuries are going to happen naturally, and so you don't need to help that natural process out by not by not teaching things correctly and not taking your time and doing the proper drills for the skills that they need to do. So now Kagan has let this girl get injured. Yeah, so
I've never directly injured somebody.
I'm joking. So now, once they do get injured, how are you trying to aid their recovery? Obviously, you've got to rehab them as best you can. We're not doctors. That's the number one thing. Yeah. And so, I'm not going to be out there, here, let me just see if I can crack your back in half or something like that.
Let me just realign this one.
Yeah. I mean, I have no degree in that sort of stuff. My degree's in communication. So really right now I'm doing much closer to what I studied to do than at any point in my life, basically. But my degree is definitely not in being a medical doctor of any sort. And so there are obviously things that you can do once they get injured to help them aid in their recovery and help them get back on the floor as much as possible. And so what are they?
So in the short term, it's ice. You ice it, it'll help with swelling. It's good. In the long term, Epsom salt. It is great. It relaxes and it helps heals, and I live by it. It is great. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
I gotta echo the ice recommendation. Honestly, I think it's underutilized by people that are less experienced, and dropping inflammation it helps everything. That's why there's so much usage of it at the pro level. People carry ice packs for a reason, it helps a bunch. Depends on the injury as well. Ice doesn't fix everything, but if it's a muscle injury, depending on the nature of the muscle injury, teaching them to build back up slowly. Do some very light stretching. Make sure that you enforce upon them, look, if it hurts, don't do it. Maybe a tiny bit of uncomfortableness can be okay, but if it hurts you, that's your body's way of telling you this is not okay, so don't do that.
Yeah.
Reinforce the build back up to it slowly. Make sure that they're ready for it.
And I agree with everything that you guys said. Ice is great. That's the first thing on my list. You'll notice, since you're always looking on my script. Ice, ice, definitely. Also, stretching. If it's a muscle or whatever, it's like you don't. Obviously, it depends on the exact situation. We're speaking in general here, but it's like stretching can help get you where you want to be. If it's necessary, then take some time off. You know, I've had some girls. It's like, hey, don't show up to our workout on Friday, and then hopefully by Monday we're good. Rest, stretch it out, get some ice. One of my favorite things to do is it's like if my back is hurting because basically we just get in high speed collisions with the
Pummeled.
children
We
for a
get
living.
assaulted.
That's basically what happens to us, and I've been doing this for 12 years. I'm not a spring chicken anymore.
You were to
but
begin with?
that I was at one point. I was a young man, believe it or not.
You sure?
But yes,
Okay.
One of these days, Kagan, you'll understand.
I can't wait for that. Coach on Command, episode 3000.
Kagan, the heartthrob is all grown up.
No. Okay. So, and all of that can help the time off. But the other thing that I try to do, and I tell our gymnasts that get injured all the time, it's like they don't get injured all the time, but I tell them when they do get injured, I feel the need to clarify that point. When they do get injured, they're like, hey, what should we do? Should we come to gym? Should we whatever? And I'm like, listen, be in the gym. I can find something for you to do. Unless you're in a full body cast, don't just take time away from the gym, because nobody ever got better at gymnastics or, parkour, I'm sure is the same way. But nobody ever got better at any of these sports by taking a lot of time off. And so it will only hinder you. And I've seen this 100 times. It's like if you take time away from the gym to heal, and you're not doing any sort of subsequent strengthening exercise, conditioning, all that kind of stuff, it makes your comeback so much harder because you no longer have the muscle mass that you had built up. And so I tell them all the time, I'm like, hey, come in, get some work in. It's like, hey, if you broke your thumb, it's like, your abs ain't broke. you
can still do squats.
Yeah,
Still do
squats.
lunges.
Yeah, it's like I will find something for you to do. But the other thing too that I think is really important, aside from the actually getting, retaining the muscle mass to be able to come back quickly, is, it's important to see your teammates. And if you're on a team, and I tell them that all the time, I'm like, don't just sit them at home for a month. That's terrible. Not only is that
left out.
Yeah, not only is that terrible for them on a physical level, it's terrible for them on a psychological level too.
Wow.
And so it's like, even just come in and help them, have them work out with their teammates, see their friends. I think all of that is super helpful, when recovering from an injury.
100%.
One other small point I want to make real quick. I do think that while it is important to stay in it and stay active, the rest is as important as the work. And if you're in an injured state, you should definitely take at least some time for the recovery.
Yes, I completely agree. And so we talked about mostly physical things until me just then at the end of that question. But
Good segue.
Yes, I try. So we talked about mostly physical things. How can your mindset play a role, and your mental toughness, your resiliency play a role in your recovery as well?
In a couple of ways, but the big thing is literally a scientific proven fact. You get in your own way mentally a lot. If you try and baby yourself the whole way, it's not going to get better. Like, you will physically stop yourself from getting better if you choose to, if that makes sense.
So I think that my answer might clarify Kagan's just a little bit.
Thank you.
The human mind is excessively powerful, more powerful than most people understand. And just as I'm not saying that you can heal a broken arm by just thinking that it's healed, but you can will yourself into a either stronger or weaker position. If your brain truly believes that your body is sick, you can actually start to develop symptoms. Monkey see, monkey do. You can truly believe that. But the same can be true for recovery. If you believe and truly believe that you're going to get better, you're more likely to work towards the goals, the baby steps needed to reattain what you lost, or reattain where you were before you were injured. And I think so because of that and some other aspects, I think the mind plays a massive role in it.
Absolutely. And I think that yeah, it plays a huge part. That's undeniable. It's hard to feel like you're not running at 100%, and I've seen that with a couple of girls on my team this off season. We are usually a very healthy team, and we have been for the past whatever 7-8 years that I've been in charge. And sure, some of that has to do with me, but some of that has to do with just the way the program is too, and some of it is luck. But the thing about it is it's hard to feel like you can't do what you're used to doing, like you can't go at the level that you're used to going. And I've seen that play a part in a few of the girls on our team who have been injured this offseason, and luckily most of them have made a recovery or down that path quite a ways. But yeah, I think that you've got to keep your body sharp, but you've also got to keep your mind sharp, because if you don't, where the mind goes, the body follows. And so if the old adage, if you think you can do something, you're right. And if you don't think you can do it, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so, stay strong mentally, stay strong emotionally, stay strong physically. And, it's hard, and it can be a rough thing having an injury. But yeah, you got to stay locked in, and it'll make your whole experience better.
Getting injured like that can be a very humbling situation as well. Going from being able to run, let's say you're the fastest 100-meter dash sprinter in the world, if you break your foot, you are no longer. You might be able to hobble along, but it's very humbling to think that such a small injury can bring you back so far. But mental fortitude can keep you in the game to a point where you realize this is only a minor setback and I will get back to where I was.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't think about that. Yeah, you go from being the fastest 100-meter dash
To barely being able to walk in.
runner, yeah, to the fastest hobbler.
Essentially.
Yeah, and so anything can happen at any time, and it can be a freak accident. Last year I had a girl who was competing a front handspring. She was getting ready to compete at state for us, a front handspring front tuck, and she was doing it, and she was doing it, and she was doing it well. it was gorgeous. It was a gorgeous skill. And all of a sudden, she lands wrong and snaps her ankle, and it's over, And so it can be rough. This sport is brutal in a lot of ways, but yeah, you gotta be tough. You gotta retain a certain amount of mental resiliency as well as your physical resiliency, and those things will help you get back on the path to recovery.
I think it also helps to understand the expectations. If a broken bone takes so many weeks to heal, you're not going to be back at it next week, maybe not even next month. But setting realistic expectations, I think, is very helpful as well.
So now we're ready for everybody's favorite part of the show. And that favorite
leave.
My favorite part.
I got myself. You didn't need to get me. I stopped any of y'all from doing it. There was no point.
You just set a layup.
Did that he alley-ooped himself?
Yeah. It's not often the basketball tells itself.
So we're going to do the randomly strong.
So my randomly strong opinion of the day is when people interrupt me. Gosh, when I'm talking and I'm trying to make a point and someone just interrupts you with their own story. Okay, hold up. I would love to hear your story. That's great. But maybe you could pretend that you're interested in what I was saying before you just start to try to walk all over me. One, it's not going to work. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to finish my sentence, or I'm going to call you out and let you know that you're rude.
All right, so Tracy really need to get that off his chest.
Point given.
Yes, it didn't help that I interrupted him before the show, so my apologies. Sorry for building up that rage within you. Okay, Kagan. Kagan.
No, I think you should go first.
No, you.
No.
No, you.
No.
No, you. No, you. No, you.
H
No, you.
first.
I like it. I said on one of the previous podcasts that baseball is my favorite sport. I follow it very closely. I spend a lot of time in the off season going to baseball, or I guess the
I love that you
baseball
touch
season.
the baseball logo on your hat as you say that.
Oh no, it's just like I got to make sure it fits right. No, yeah, and so baseball is my favorite sport. And they have a commissioner, and I, like most of the sane baseball fans in the world, I cannot stand Rob Manfred. And there was a time this
I don't even know what that is.
he's the commissioner of baseball, and I was at the All-Star game in Texas in Arlington earlier this year, and he nearly ran out in front of my car. That's a whole different story. I nearly hit the commissioner of baseball. But you
Would
can
you have if you got the chance?
I am not going to admit to any crimes on this podcast. So anyway, nobody likes Rob Manfred. He's doing a bunch of really weird stuff with baseball, and baseball is a pretty traditional sport. And so now his new brainchild is for robot umpires. And so here's the deal. The thing is that I like the human element of the game. But even more than that, and this is the most important part, arguing with umpires is the best part of going to a baseball game.
Yeah.
It's like I am sitting up here in section 691. I'm 500 feet from the plate, and I know that wasn't a strike. What's wrong with you? You've got to know that he was safe at second. It doesn't even matter, and you can know you're wrong, and that even feels better. It doesn't matter. You don't even have to be right. You can just be wrong and scream at the umpire and have you and 7 dudes in your section freaking out. That's the best part. That and the food.
But no, I agree with the whole robot umpire things. I think it's bad. I fully agree with that one, for once and only once. But no, you know what's really annoying? It's when short things are tall for no reason. Like
Why do you stand up?
like shelves. Like shelves should be reachable, but they're not accessible to everybody. Same thing with cabinets. And this microphone, it is so high for no reason. I've That's still really bad. That's still. I like the movement. The movement.
Yeah, you got jealous of me and Tracy are holding.
I did. I did.
He got jealous of being in the privileged position.
I did. Do y'all want it? I'll trade. Like genuinely, no joke. That's the entire thing I'm upset about. Is just this. I don't like how tall it is, and that's my randomly strong opinion. Is how tall this mic.
We've invited a child to our podcast.
Yes, we have. I mean, it is in some ways about children, so I guess it's apropos, the kids that we work with. And so that's it. Anybody have anything else like to add?
I don't think you want me to add anything.
No, you are correct.
Sold there.
All right, guys. So that'll do it for us again. And as always, we will try better next time. But we thank you very much for hanging out with us. Okay.
I see him in the corner of my queuing up.
I was just making sure that you weren't gonna say something. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Please stay tuned for an otter playing an oboe.
And have a flipping great day.
And don't forget to set.
You were like the Hamburglar for catchphrase. Y'all take care.